Brilliance Audio presents Lie, Lie Again by Stacy Wise, performed by Emily Ellett. The world news section of the Sunday paper was spread across Hugh's otherwise pristine kitchen table. Sylvia dutifully skimmed the headlines. Casualties, crisis, corruption. Why couldn't they report good news? It seemed that paper sales would go up if they splashed uplifting headlines across the front page. She sipped her coffee and enjoyed the bittersweet tang of the powdered creamer she'd added. Hugh had introduced her to the chemical concoction. She'd initially mocked it, but now she was obsessed. Too much was probably deadly. She laughed to herself. The dreary news was clearly taking a toll. Doom and gloom. As much as she enjoyed her Sunday mornings with Hugh, she could do without the newspaper bit. But he loved his old-fashioned ritual, the familiar smell and his eventual inky fingers. Trendy, frameless glasses were perched on the tip of his nose, his half of the paper in a tight fold. Such a serious man. She liked that she had the power to make him smile. He was absolutely perfect in an everyday man sort of way. It was one of the things that made him so desirable. Would he be insulted by the everyday man comment if she were to say it aloud? Words were funny. It was all too easy to misinterpret things when you weren't privy to the vast array of thoughts in the other person's head. She studied him as he read. Dark blonde hair, cool gray-blue eyes beneath the glasses. His lashes were stubby. There was really no nice way to say it, but on a man, stubby lashes weren't so bad, were they? They were thick and full and gave him an assertive look, a reliable look, like he'd be the one to give you tax advice or walk you through the process of setting up a wireless remote. Yes, everything about him was steadfast and sturdy. Hugh was the Volvo of men, she laughed to herself. He certainly wouldn't like that analogy. The man drove a Range Rover. Meeting him had been a lucky fluke. He'd been wearing a wedding ring, and married men weren't her type. But he'd pulled up a bar stool next to hers at the Vertigo, and a conversation began to flow as smooth as the red wine she sipped. The lights in the bar were dim and golden, and unlike the name suggested, the place had a gentle, old Hollywood feel. When she'd asked how long he'd been married, he laughed and slid off the ring. "It's a fake." He'd proceeded to twist what she realized was cheap metal into a tiny infinity sign. "Fake? Why?" He'd leaned forward, eyes twinkling, and spoken quietly like he was letting her in on a secret. "Well, it's not like I'm fighting off women, but I've found that wearing a ring allows me to enjoy a drink without any weird vibes from a woman who thinks I'm hitting on her. Usually I just want to talk." With a humble shrug, he added, "I'm a people person." "And with the wedding band, you're Mr. Safe Guy, not Mr. Slick." "Right." He'd tucked the crumpled metal into his pocket. "Does that make me sound crazy?" His smile was genuine, and Sylvia found herself grinning back. She'd inspected his face. He had to be in his 30s, late 30s, so he couldn't be much older than her 35 years. Interesting that he was still single. "We'll call it a unique approach. How's that?" "Fair enough." He'd lifted his drink to hers. "I'm Hugh." "Sylvia." As they'd clinked glasses, a sudden certainty had washed over her. After all the thinking and plotting and planning, he'd simply appeared in her path like a lucky penny. Later that night, in a dark corner of the Vertigo foyer, they'd pressed their bodies together and kissed like lovers. As she drove home alone, she'd laughed to herself, amused that she'd left the Vertigo with an acute case of vertigo. Because of Hugh, how long had it been since a kiss had left her dizzy?